As the sounds of sirens and the smell of smoke is filling the city of Bakersfield tonight, as wild wind is fueling flames and several fires burning around Kern County.
Yet if those flames, those winds complicating the firefight, and crews are out in full force battling fires in Oildale, southeast Bakersfield, and in the Edison area. Tonight we have team coverage with Eyewitness News forecaster Katya Hall, who's tracking the winds for us. Kristen Powers in Oildale with the latest on the Willow fire. Kyle Harvey live as horses are being rescued from the Cottonwood fire. But first, we begin with Suzette Reynoso, who's live near that fire where evacuations are underway. Suzette.
Well, fire crews are still trying to put out hot spots right now in the Cottonwood fire. Now, as you can see behind me, fire crews have been out here since noon, since 12 o'clock, trying to put out the Cottonwood fire. We're at the corner of Cottonwood and East Pacheco Road. Now, we're joined with a public information officer for the Bakersfield Fire Department. Thank you for joining us this evening. Can you tell us what happened here?
About, like you said, noon this morning or this afternoon, city fire crews responded to a vegetation fire at the time in the area of East Pacheco and Cottonwood. When city fire resources arrived on scene, they did note heavy fire involvement in a lot of the vegetation around the area with structures being threatened. We ordered additional structure alarms to make sure that we could protect those homes. As a result, we have approximately 20 pieces of equipment out here, both city and county, working together to try to put out this grass fire and protect these homes. As a result of this fire, unfortunately, there was a lot of animals that were injured pretty severely at times, and there was a number of animals that also died as a result of this fire. Fortunately, there was no injuries to any people, no deaths to any people. Our firefighters, they had been working for several hours without food, without water, trying to protect these homes and put out this fire. So the fire was pretty much under control approximately 2 hours ago or so. We are going to be working on scene for several hours trying to put out the hot spots.
And so at least three structures have been burned. Can you tell me a little bit more about those structures?
Yeah, two of them were vacant homes, pretty much falling apart, if you will. One of them was an occupied home, and nobody was at home at the time of the fire, so we were very fortunate. But we did go through a lot of these homes, making sure there was nobody inside, make sure that we accounted for any people that may have been inside the structures. And again, no injuries are reported at this time.
So earlier today we were out here and this wind gust, I'm sure this cannot be good for your work here. How did it play a role in fighting this fire?
Yeah, these winds this afternoon were very hot, very dry. As a result, this fire really was wind driven with the hot temperatures outside. The temperatures alone helped preheat the fuels, but when the wind started laying down these flame lengths, the flames actually started preheating the fuels ahead of it. So it was really tough to get ahead of this fire, but again, some of these winds are not common for us here in this area, but the Santa Anas are going, there's a lot of fires burning out throughout the state, and this is probably a small version of a lot of those major campaign fires that are burning throughout the state.
So there was a lot of evacuations, but right now people are able to return to their homes, is that correct?
Yeah, there was a lot of evacuations. We evacuated some homes just to the west of our location. Fortunately, law enforcement was on scene. All three agencies, KCSO, CHP, and BPD, assisted with those evacuations. Our fire resources definitely had our hands full trying to put out the fire and get ahead of it, so we were fortunate law enforcement assisted with those evacuations. Fire crews were able to steer the fire away from those homes, and we were able to lift those evacuation orders pretty quickly.
Well, thank you so much for your work here, and thank you for giving us that information. Now we're going to stick around and give you the latest information. Until then, back to you.
Well, Suzette, I saw a lot of people out here, faces that were full of both determination and also desperation as the fire really raged on for several hours over a really large area here. You kind of saw a different piece of it today as me. I can confirm at this hour that 3 horses have been killed by this fire. About 15 horses have been rescued, and several more, a large number perhaps, remain unaccounted for at this point. I spoke with Elias Mendez today. He was one of several people who had convinced a group of firefighters to let them behind a blockade into where a lot of these horses in the area were stabled to try to get them out of the fire, knock down everything they could to create a path of escape for these horses. He owned some of them, his uncle owned some of them. There was a crowd of people that had kind of gathered here at the corner of Brook and Cottonwood, and they were really heartened at one point to see Elias's uncle walking out of the smoke with one of the larger horses. Hefe, I believe was his name. He appeared to be okay, so that was a great source of encouragement for a lot of people here. But all the men that had been able to get back into that area had pretty terrible stories to tell about what they'd seen where these horses had been kept.
One of the chiefs let us in to open them and kick them as many as we can out. We were able to get about 6 or 7 of them out. There's more out there. There's other properties right next to us that we opened their stalls, trying to get as many out as we could. One of our females got burned down. I was able to get the colt out, but I don't know how many more we're gonna lose.
Now, one piece of good news, as I said before, I'm standing on the corner of Cottonwood and Brook Street east of Cottonwood had been evacuated earlier as the field behind me had begun to burn closer and closer to these houses. A firefighter came to me just before we started here and said it is now clear for everyone that lives along this stretch of the road to return to their homes. So that's some good news here this evening. But to continue our coverage, let's go now live to Kristen Powers. She's in Oildale, where the Willow Fire presented a whole host of challenges today on the other side of town. Kristen?
Yeah, Kyle, the Oildale fire is just off of Willow Drive. It's north of the Kern River. I'm joined now with Kern County Fire Captain Jason Nags. Jason, what do you know about this fire now?
Well, we received reports just after, or right around 1:30 of a fire near the corrals near Riverview Park. And firefighters arrived on scene, had a fast-moving fire, numerous buildings threatened, as well as horses in the stables. Firefighters got on scene. They opened many of the stables, saving quite a few of the animals. And the locals were able to wrangle those horses together. So far, 3 residences destroyed by the fire. I know at least 2 of them were inhabited. No injuries, though, fortunately. And we were assisted by KCSO with evacuations along Willow. Again, no injuries, and reports of 5 horses deceased in the fire. Unfortunately, still confirming that number. There may be more.
And we really saw the community kind of come together. We saw horses, donkeys, livestock, just wrangling them out to get here. So far we know 5 are dead, but what made this so effective in getting livestock and people evacuated?
Well, that's our first priority. So although the fire was moving fast, some firefighters attacked the fire directly. They stood in front of the fire and made an assault and protected homes. Other firefighters got people out of the way, and that really helped save a lot of livestock and people as well.
Right now, you were saying the fire is contained, but fire crews are still on scene, of course. The wind, it's very apparent. It's very windy out here. What did that do to this fire?
Well, the dry wind coming from the south really fanned the flames. The fires normally near the river, on this side of the river, just burn into the river and go out. But today we have wind coming from the south, and that just pushed the fire in between all these homes through the dry grass, ignited multiple cars. We have at least 45 cars destroyed by the fire, several trailers, outbuildings, and it moved so fast. We're happy to get here in time to get some of the people out of the way.
And at this point, you're saying there's not even an acreage that you can put to this fire?
Yeah, no acreage estimates yet, and the smoke's starting to clear from some of the divisions here, so we're getting a better number, an estimate of outbuildings destroyed, and we'll have more a little later.
So far we know no injuries as far as human lives, and we know 5 animals have died, about 45 cars. What's your message to the public there's a lot of people watching, running this way, trying to figure out what's going on? That's right. We're urging people just to stay out of the way of the firefighters. There's also PG&E on scene, Animal Services, and KCSO, CHP. Just be mindful that there was some down power lines earlier. Anytime we have high winds, not only do you have a threat for a rapid fire growth, but you have down power lines, and of course the dust and the smoke made driving in the area very difficult. A big team effort here. Thank you so much for your time. And again, we're going to continue to bring you updates on this Oildale fire. We're now going to head over to Katia Hall, who's monitoring these wind conditions that's playing such a big part in these fires spreading. Katia.
and out of the east here, and these winds are the added fuel to the fire, and it's the direction these winds are coming from which makes these winds so dangerous. So you can see these winds are coming in out of the east. These winds are very dry, very warm, and very gusty winds. We have this ridge of high pressure overhead, and it's producing these easterly winds. So we're still seeing gusty winds over the Grapevine right now, up to about 25 miles per hour. You can see those winds picking up to about 20 out here in Bakersfield. And earlier today across the South Valley, we saw some very gusty conditions with blowing dust. Some of our photographers went across town and shot some footage, and you can't even see off in the distance here. Get a look at all this blowing dust across town. Amazing how much blowing dust we did see. We also saw lots of smoke move in from the fires that are burning here in the valley, as well as a fire that's burning to the north of us, the Lion Fire. And because these winds are coming in out of the east, that is what is pushing that smoke here into our area. So we do have an air quality alert here in the South Valley that will run until about tomorrow morning. Because of all those bad conditions out there, the Kern High School District has actually canceled all outdoor activities for this evening. So we do still have this fire weather warning that's going to be in place. In addition, a wind advisory that runs until about 11 o'clock tonight. We're going to see gusts up to about 45 miles per hour still throughout this evening, as well as going into early tomorrow morning. We'll still see a little bit of some lingering winds. A red flag warning in place until about 11 o'clock tonight for our higher elevations, and then there's that air quality alert in place until about 2 o'clock in the morning. Easterly winds pushing in this smoke and dust across the area, and like I said, all Kern High School District outdoor activities have been canceled. We'll have more on that full forecast in just a couple minutes here, but for now, Dave, back to you.